welcome to the first Citizen Media Expert Interview Series. Ashoka Changemakers, with the support of Google, launched Citizen Media, a global innovation competition to find solutions that use media to catalyze participatory citizenship. Media connects people to their world, gives voice to their dreams and ideas, and equips them with knowledge to improve their lives and the lives of others. But even in this age of pervasive media, millions lack access to the most basic information tools. The Citizen Media Competition seeks to change this reality. In this series, we'll connect with media experts from around the world to explore major trends, obstacles, and what lies ahead.
We are delighted to be speaking with Cara Andrade, co-founder and coordinator of Habla Centro, joining us from Guatemala. Cara, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Ava, for having me. I'm really excited about talking to you.
I'd like to start by asking you to introduce yourself in just a few words.
Well, I'm a native of Guatemala, and I was born here, and I immigrated to the States when I was very young, when I was 6 years old, and now I'm back in my home country. I've been back here for the past couple of years. I started out with Fulbright, and now I'm an Ashoka Fellow. I'm co-founder and coordinator for Habla Centro.
Great. I'm sure you're doing very exciting work out there. I would love to hear a little bit more about your work with Habla Centro and get a sense about how it started and what you all are doing.
Well, Habla Centro is a local mobile-driven network of regional citizen information websites in Central America and later on extending to Latin America. It's run by volunteers, and they all share information, and they participate in their own local websites that are within each country. And so, for example, for Guatemala, it would be Habla Guate. For Honduras, it would be Habla Honduras. For Costa Rica, it would be Habla Costa Rica, and so on and so forth. And the idea is to get contributors, especially young people from each country, to start sharing and discussing information in various languages, primarily Spanish, but extending into indigenous languages, and doing that in an anonymous way where they feel safe contributing information and different news that they want to share. And they can contribute via computers, emails, and cell phones.
Very nice. Do you see any parallels between the June 28th, 2009 coup in Honduras with the Egyptian revolution earlier this year?
That's a really good question. It's a question that I've been including quite a bit in some of my presentations because in some ways the citizen uprising that peacefully ousted the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak reminds us of something that's incredibly important now, which is the fact that we're not alone and that we're all connected in this new information society. And so it's gone beyond just like your municipality or your department or your country. It's going into something a little bit bigger of like global citizen information network of how we're all impacted by one node and how something that happens in one country can impact us all. And I think that it's very relevant to what happened in Honduras because when Honduras happened on June 28, 2009, a lot of people, if they were getting their information from the local media in Honduras, they thought nothing was happening in Honduras. But if they started seeing a lot of the way that citizens were creating their own blogs, their own Facebook pages, their own groups, and were informing the public using social media, and how they were switching that power structure, that traditional power dynamic of information and storytelling, they were crafting their own stories using whatever tools were most available and accessible to them to tell about what actually was happening in Honduras. And so when we started Habla Honduras, it was requested by Hondurans on the ground and who wanted to share their own stories in a very democratic, safe way. So the site started out with a request by 20-25 folks from different nonprofits and different sectors of society, civil society, some reporters and other volunteers, and they wanted an Honduras where they could send their all their information. They use via cell phones, and they could contribute via email to web, and different ways that they could contribute their information and to craft their own narrative. And I think there's something incredibly dynamic and paradigm shifting when you're looking at people's power to craft that story and put it out globally now, and say, I'm a citizen of the world. Here's my story. I own this story, and you have a right to know about it and to hear my story. And I think that's the way that what's happening in Honduras is also synchronous with what's happening in Egypt, and what's happening in Guatemala, and what's happening in a lot of countries in Syria and other parts of the world, where you're seeing this kind of information paradigm shift.
Were you actually on the ground in Honduras before the coup occurred? Did you have a chance to see that transition?
I didn't. That's what was so intriguing about this, is that at that time, I was in the U.S., and I was preparing to leave on my Fulbright to start Abaguate in Guatemala. And we had just started, we ended up launching Abaguate 1 month earlier because of a situation, video that was released by attorney Rodrigo Rosenberg. And 1 month later was when we were contacted by folks, and it was all via Skype, via Facebook. Different folks contacted me, and they got me on a call, and they said, we really need what you've done for Guatemala, and we needed that here in Honduras. And they organized themselves. All we did was provide some training on how to use the website, how to contribute. I started working more specifically on editorial and journalistic fundamentals when they were reporting, verification of information with local teams. There were like 3 to 5 editors, and that to me was the most intriguing thing, that even though I was like thousands of miles away, I could still work with the local teams and train them and give them exactly what they needed to make this happen locally for them, and empower them to do that, and not just say, I'm going to come down and cover this for you, which is what traditional media has always done, right? They send a reporter down to the country, and that report is the voice of, what happens in that country. And half the time, the reporter doesn't even know what's happening because he's not from that country. So the fact that I could work with like local communities and just give them exactly what they needed, the time that they needed it to tell their stories, I felt had more relevance and more authenticity, and the stories showed on the site that they were coming from locals. And so for me, like seeing that transformation from like when I first started chatting with them on Skype to 3 to 4 months later, when they're sending in these incredible like editorial pieces, or like they're sending in, or they're creating maps, they're creating a Google Maps documenting human rights violations. Like it was an incredible, continuum for me of the development of one person into an information citizen, right, and a journalist. And so that, I think, had I been on the ground, I think it would have been a different experience. And in some ways, I felt like if I had been on the ground, it might have also interfered with their process of creating local ownership.
Right. So I'd like to switch gears slightly and talk a bit more about the tensions in this space. Through your site, you have experimented with combinations of curated information and unfiltered information. Are there tensions you find between an open flow of information and this ongoing need for quality and authenticity?
I think so. That's one of the tensions that traditional journalism, has been dealing with across the board, not just in U.S. journalism, but all over the world, is how are reporters working with citizens now to curate information, to create processes around unfiltered information, and create quality control, right? And that's a really big question. I think that the tension always with open flow of information is verification, right? Like that's one of like the recipes for what journalism is. Is it true? Does it have impact? Is it timely? Is it newsworthy? And is it geographically significant? Those are like the 5 main things that go into what is news, right? And so if one of those 5 pillars, like, is it true? Isn't there? It endangers everything else, right? And so I think that the biggest the biggest tension there is finding ways to create an open flow of information that is true and verifiable, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that in the end leads to quality information.
Great.
And if it's quality information, then it's actually useful. And so there's a very direct cause and effect there. And so the more we start working both with citizens on the training side and also algorithms to create processes where the open flow of information has or goes through some kind of verification or veracity check, then we can improve at the other end to create quality information that's meaningful and relevant, has impact for people in a geographically specific way.
Great. So as you know, Ashoka Changemakers, with the support of Google, is seeking innovators in citizen media. What was your reaction when you heard about this global innovation competition?
I was ecstatic. I was the person who announced it to me was Keith Hammonds. We were at the Night MIT conference in Boston in June, and it was a wonderful awareness, kind of like a realization for me. I was like, of course, that's like a perfect partnership, because what you're talking about is an organization that is champion social entrepreneurship and out of the box thinking and out of the box doing with a company that has always been on the edge of innovation as far as information, right? And so to me, I had just this big grin on my face when Keith Hammonds announced it. And so my next question was when does the competition start and can we all apply? So I was very excited about it, and I think for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing the kinds of projects that come out of that partnership, and groundbreaking in both the social entrepreneurship side, but also on the information side and the journalism. Because I think most of us think journalism is one type of little box somewhere else, but journalism is really one type of information that's necessary for us to make daily informed decisions. And so I think I'm just looking forward to see what comes out of it, and especially the projects.
Cara, I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice. There's so much excitement around this topic, and I can tell you're really passionate about the subject and what you all are doing. So what is the most exciting thing that you believe will be happening in the following months, in the following years?
I think there's three things, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit since Keith announced that. The first thing that's coming to mind, and increasingly I'm seeing little case studies here and there about it, but I think it's going to be more widespread, is the coming together of the business, the information, and the journalism side of things into models that are innovative, transformative, and sustainable. And so I've seen it in different countries, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go in this direction where we're going to see these projects that have been seed projects, like Shahidi, for example, just take off on a global and a very ubiquitous way that are going to be sustainable and are really going to impact communities in very local and a global way. So that's the first thing I think about. The second thing is that I think that the gap between what is a citizen and what is a journalist is going to be diminishing increasingly each day, and that to me is exciting, because when we're talking about the diminishing of that gap, we're talking about creating spaces where journalists can start working more with citizens, whether it's digital literacy kind of projects, messaging reporting kind of trainings, teams of citizens and journalists going out. Creating online tools where, for example, experts can help inform journalists on their reporting. I think there's just a whole, just an incredibly diverse ecosystem of news and information that's evolving. And so that's the second thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing evolve this year. And I think the third thing that I'm saying is I think there's going to be a more diversified funding base for these projects, because I think a lot of foundations, especially like Knight, are starting to see benefit of putting together certain certain components or certain groups of people that do projects that normally haven't come together. And I think when you create that kind of intersection space, it's something that's referred to in the Medici effect, one of the books I'm reading right now. When you create that kind of intersection space, you're creating a very diverse, just a diverse soil for the creation of different projects, which are like mind-blowingly innovative. And so, and the support of those projects, once foundations start seeing these projects evolve, is going to be incredible, because not only are you going to see these little seed projects, but they're going to get some funding and they're going to get support. And I think they're going to be able to get the support they need to make the next leap and to help everyone in the end, because when we learn together, we all grow together.
Right. So the final question that I would like to pose to you is how you define citizen media. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to your colleagues? And what does it mean to the people that you work with on the ground?
Citizen media, it's interesting because in the countries that I work in Central America, that dichotomy still hasn't been created, right? I think it's partly because people still consider themselves part of that ecosystem of what is used. It's very difficult. I think in some ways that definition of citizen media is one that dichotomy that's been created in the U.S. But even within the groups of people who consider themselves citizen media, like there's a lot of differences, of definition. But I think that within my country, when we talk about storytelling more than anything, I think that's what I would call it. Storytelling and the tools that we use for storytelling are providing an opportunity for citizens to really be engaged in self-governance and governance, larger governance, and the transformation of governments that really will resonate with what citizens want in their lives and what they envision in their lives. And so, you get projects in Guatemala and all of Central America that are looking at OpenGov, that are looking at accountability. There's a project like Guate Reporta, which is all about citizens coming together to make reports of crimes that happen in all of Guatemala, and it's user contributed, combined with journalists also getting these reports from databases and things like that. And so that project's very interesting, and its idea is so that you're aware of what's happening around you, what kind of crime, trying to be just be mindful. And there's other projects that are looking at fighting impunity, right? And so you're getting into really, really interesting spaces, I think, where citizen media is also incredibly dynamic. It's not just traditional media starting to incorporate citizens and their voice. It's that dynamic and that conversation of citizens shaping the information, structuring it, presenting it, sharing it with the rest of the world and their stories in a way that's meaningful to them, and on their turf, on their terms, in their language. And so what I'm seeing a lot of in Central America is that people may not know that term, but they're doing it. And the fact that they're doing it proves to me that it has really reached the bottom of the pyramid, right? And that people are already engaging in the first major step in what I believe is building democratic spaces, whether they're online or offline,
Great.
Which is them feeling entitled to having that space, having their voice heard, and their story shared. And so I think that's incredibly just transformative.
Wonderful. Well, Cara, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and share your thoughts and share your story. We look forward to hearing more about the incredible things you all are doing in South and Central America. Again, thank you for your time, and have a great afternoon.